The Nashville Predators made big news on Saturday, re-signing forward Filip Forsberg to a multi-year deal. And Kimmel, the co-host of Locked On Predators, is here to talk about that, the draft, and all things Nashville Predators coming up on the Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, everybody. Gil Martin back with you here on the Locked On NHL Podcast Monday edition. Thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. It's my pleasure to welcome back to the show the co-host of Locked On Predators, and Kimmel. And big news on Saturday, especially the Predators re-signing Filip Forsberg to a multi-year extension, keeping him in the Music City. Your thoughts about this deal, the length, the amount of money he's getting, and what it means for the Preds?
Yeah, this was huge for Nashville. We have been on Filip Forsberg watch for what feels like months. And there was a lot of back and forth with this deal. And people were getting concerned that this wasn't going to be something that got done, that Forsberg would test free agency, which would have been a big issue for the Nashville Predators moving forward. To have Filip Forsberg locked up before free agency starts is a huge relief. And I think everyone feels very good about the contract. It is an 8-year contract worth about $68 million. And I feel like this is a good contract for the Predators, the way that it's structured. But I also feel like it communicates his value to the team, to Filip Forsberg. So all the way around, I think everybody in Nashville is feeling very relieved.
And with Forsberg coming back, what does that mean for the offense, and how can they build around him given the amount of cap space that he is taking up?
Filip Forsberg is so key to this offense. Of course, last season, he had his best season. He and Matt Duchene went back and forth for the number of goals scored in a season. Matt Duchene beat him out by 1 goal, but they both were 40 goal scorers. And I think that's part of the importance of Filip Forsberg. Not only does he generate a tremendous amount of offense, and he is a creative playmaker, but he also makes other players on his line better. And he and Matt Duchene really developed a great chemistry over this season. And I believe that part of Matt Duchene's emergence for the Nashville Predators that has been a little rocky since he got here really is due a little bit in part to being put together with Filip Forsberg. So Forsberg staying in Nashville, I think, is a benefit for the Predators, a benefit for Filip Forsberg, but it's also going to, I think, improve the game of some other players on the team. And that's huge for Nashville.
Also, over the weekend in the first round, the Predators drafting 17th overall. They go with a Finnish winger in Joakim Kemell. Your thoughts about the pick and where he fits into the organization?
This pick was a huge surprise. To be honest with you, it wasn't something that was necessarily on the radar for a lot of us that were kind of looking at pre-draft lists, because nobody believed that Kimmel was going to drop out of the top 10 and be available at 17. So this was a delightful surprise for Nashville Predators fan, and I'm certain for general manager David Poile. And I think it's a fantastic pick. I believe his style of play kind of just automatically meshes well with the style of play that Nashville is looking to build around: a physical style of play, creative, decent size. He's not maybe as tall or as big as David Poile generally likes, but he's 5'11" and he plays a very physical game. So I think this is a really great get for Nashville. And again, I don't think it was something they anticipated. I think everybody is delighted with this. I can see him really kind of developing a little bit more of his game and being somebody whose shot can be an impact for the Nashville Predators, a couple seasons down the road. So this is a huge, huge draft success for David Poile.
Gotta like the availability at 17. Okay,
Mhm.
so the draft is behind us. Forsberg is back and in the lineup for the next 7-8 years. What are the priorities as we head into free agency, and what do you think that Poile will do going forward in the next few weeks?
Yeah, I think David Poile still has some work cut out for him. Over the weekend, he did trade Luke Kunin to the San Jose Sharks. Kunin was a second line winger who really was not able to produce well, and that second line's offensive work really did not show up this past season. So I think you're going to look at David Poile shopping around in free agency for somebody to play on that second line to generate some offense. They also picked up Ryan McDonagh for defense, so they've already done a little work there. So I expect that David Poile's going to be looking around for a second line winger who's available at a decent price.
And how much cap space do they have to work with at this point?
Well, signing Filip Forsberg took about $8.5 million in cap space, but there's still plenty to go around. You know, the Predators went into this with a sizable amount of cap space. So it's not that they're going to be, forced to look for somebody bargain basement. They have a little bit of money to spend. And with Forsberg re-signed, with McDonagh on defense and the defensive pairings looking a little more shored up this coming season, David Poile may use that cap space and invest in somebody for 3 to 4 years, because I think he feels like the Predators have developed a window of opportunity. We'll see how accurate that is, but I wouldn't be surprised for David Poile to spend a little money on some offensive power for that second line.
Now, during the regular season, I think the Predators were a pleasant surprise to a lot of people. The goaltending was better, maybe a little faster than people expected, but the playoffs were a little bit of a disappointment. What do they need to do to try to get beyond where they went this season?
The playoff performance of the Predators has sort of been the hitch in the giddy up for the Nashville Predators fans. They just have not been able to get out of that first round, no matter how good the team looked. I think part of that comes down to timing and performance. I think the Predators this past season, they peaked a little bit early. After the All-Star game, they just sort of lost some of that mojo. UC Saros a little bit in net, but also I think offensively and defensively, they just struggled down the stretch. So I think part of that is, of course, that mysterious hockey timing. But I also think that there is an element of this where the Predators are really going to have to dig in a little bit. And I like bringing in somebody like Ryan McDonagh, who has been around and has some experience, who has some Stanley Cup experience, because there is a different level that you have to play at to get deeper in the playoffs and especially to win a Stanley Cup. So I don't underestimate how important bringing in someone with that experience is, regardless of his contributions on the ice. I think that's valuable off the ice. And I think they're really going to have to buy in. You saw some of that this past season. I think the team all began pulling in the same direction, which they'd struggled with for a few seasons. I think some more of that, a little bit of growth from players like Phil Tomasino. And this could be the year that the Predators maybe break that first round curse.
All right, we'll see. I love the McDonagh trade. I mean, you're not only getting a steady defenseman, but leadership. Former captain and just a guy who's been there and done that, as you alluded to. And why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
You can find the podcast anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcasts. We are on YouTube. You can find us on Twitter at LO_Predators. And you can follow me on Twitter at AnnK_Mama on Ice.
All right. And Kimmel, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including Major League Baseball. And look, you could bet on future NBA, NFL, NHL, things for the coming season. Plenty going on right now at BetOnline, and BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. And BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, tennis, golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. Bet Online, where the game starts.